Have you ever heard Sir Robert Peel's quote, "The police are the public and the public are the police"? Basically, police are there to prevent and enforce the law, not to punish people. There is that thing called community policing. And when I first started, I wasn't a big fan of it. But then I realized, yeah, there's going to be some level of community policing that is definitely needed. So let's talk about that. If you're interested in getting into law enforcement or you're new to the profession, let me share with you my perspective I learned over the course of more than a decade in law enforcement about community policing. Hey, what's going on? It's Scott. I teach police officers all across the country about how to stay alive and thriving. But considering I was in law enforcement for so long, I do talk about what I learned and the experiences I had. So one of the topics of policing is community police. And essentially, it is what you think it is for the police to be in sync with their community. It's absolutely necessary. The police are not better than anybody. The police are there to keep the community safe. It's not to impose their will on the community. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there are some rogue cops out there. When I first started in policing, I had gone through the tactical training. I had gone through the criminal element training. I went through the arrest, search, and seizure and constitutional law and all that kind of stuff. But they didn't really talk much about community policing. So when I got out on patrol, I thought traffic stops, warrants, responding to 911 calls. That's the extent of it. I'll treat people with respect. They'll remember that. We'll be good. But as I went on throughout the career, I learned it's very important that the community has a level of respect for you. You just like you show respect for them. And if people don't like you, guess what? They're not going to talk to you. As human beings, people will remember how you made them feel. You could be getting someone a ticket on a traffic stop and then find out they're wanted on a warrant and arrest them, and therefore they're facing a ticket and the warrant and all that. And if you treat them with respect, they'll at the end of the arrest, they say, thank you. It's not because they're thanking you for the ticket, thanking them for arresting them because they had a warrant in addition to the ticket that you initially stopped them for. It's because they remember how you made them feel, and they are glad that you made them feel valuable and respected. Typically, that's what happens on the job. But the thing is, a police department needs to be proactive with their community efforts. And there are many different ways to do that. Particularly nowadays with the use of social media, there's no excuse for a police department not to have a updated Facebook page, updated Twitter page, videos on YouTube. Have your own YouTube channel with content that not only features the police officers, but maybe shows what they do on their personal time without giving too much information away as to so far as like jeopardizing the safety of their family, stuff like that. But there's also the in-person events that I found to be very valuable. There was that one time where me and my patrol team, we were told to go work with the employees at McDonald's and help serve breakfast to people that came into the dining area or pulled up to the drive-through. I forget the name of the event, but at first I was kind of like, oh man, why are we going to do that? Why are we getting tied up there? But it ended up being an eye-opening experience, and we had a blast. And it was hilarious to see people, because I worked the drive-through window, and it was hilarious to see people's reactions when they saw me, a police officer, handing their food with a smile on my face. It just threw so many people off, and the McDonald's employee, she thought it was hilarious. There's also church camps where they'll ask police officers to come speak about traffic safety or personal safety, or the canine officers will go talk about the canine work. These things at times you just don't feel like going to, but it's very important because you never know what lasting impression you're going to make, and you never know when you might be in the neighborhood responding to a crime and someone remembered you from that community event and you need help gathering information, and they remembered how you made them feel at that community event and how respected and enthusiastic you were, it comes full circle and they'll be more than willing to talk to you. It doesn't always happen. I can't give blanketed statements that it doesn't always happen, but the probability increases. One thing that the department where I worked for a long time didn't have for several years was officers patrolling on bicycles. When a new chief came in, he implemented a bicycle program, bicycle patrol, and there was a whole policy enacted, and many officers got on board with that. I, for one, didn't have any interest in it, but many other officers did. And it was kind of cool because they would ride around the neighborhoods, they would ride around downtown, and it was more personable. The only thing I was kind of confused about was in the neighborhoods, they would ride around at 9 a.m. A lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods are not out and about in the neighborhood at 9 a.m., more so early evening into the late evening. So I was a little confused about that one, but that was a little bit above my pay grade. In other words, be out when the people are out. Now, for those who are not on bicycle patrol and drive around in a car, it is important to get out of the car. You just can't be seen in the car, and it's a really big safety hazard if you don't know someone to just roll your window down and start talking to them.
Get out of the car.
And I'm not saying that you have to engage in some lengthy conversation with everybody you come across. Just getting out of your car and walking down the block and walking back and just saying, hello, how are you doing to somebody can make a good impression. And one thing I found very valuable was to never pass up a chance to be nice and welcoming, informative to the kids in the neighborhood. I played pickup football games with them. I would always do my best to have stickers in my glove box that had the little junior police badges that I could hand to them. I would sometimes buy stuffed animals on my own to hand out to the kids whenever I was riding around in the neighborhood. And what do you know? There were a few times kids actually helped me and other officers find some people who were wanted on warrants. And speaking about kids and the youth, I think it's important for patrol officers to go into the schools that are in their patrol districts and not just leave the rapport building up to the SRO. Absolutely not. Take a walk through more than once or twice a year and be seen during class change, but wave and smile. And then if something happens, yeah, you're there and you can help the SRO deal with it. But it's just one more thing you can do to be involved in the community. But there are events in the community where the police officers are told to go. And I felt it was a little embarrassing because, unfortunately, there would be more officers than citizens that showed up for the event. These little neighborhood picnics or neighborhood national night outs, there'd be maybe 20 participants and there'd be 20 police officers. There was no need for that, in my opinion. There needed to be 2 officers there while the others were out there enforcing the laws or responding to 911 calls. And then the problem was the officers would just huddle up and start talking to themselves and not the people putting on the event. I know they didn't have any ill intent, but that's what happened. I went to one neighborhood one time for a national night out, and I was the only officer talking to somebody, and he and I were talking about the Dallas Cowboys. It wasn't a hard conversation to have. We were both Cowboys fans. We felt sorry for ourselves. We engaged in a conversation, but the officers were just standing there. I'm not saying I never went to an event and didn't talk to people. There were times I was having a bad shift and I didn't want to talk to people. I should have pushed myself to get over how I was feeling and talk to people. Look, ultimately, the job of policing does involve a level of going after people who need to be caught because they're a danger, or responding to the 911 calls to help out in emergency situations. Unfortunately, some police get so wrapped up in the community policing that they forget how to do the other side of policing, which is proactive policing, to prevent and deter and respond to crime in progress. I know some are going to disagree with me on that, but that's what I noticed. Some were more on the community aspect, but yet on a call, I didn't want them to show up. It's all about maintaining that balance. But just remember this, when it comes to community policing, it's good to show up at these events and present to people about the job and to shake their hand, to smile, to be authentic. It's very important, but it's also important when you're out and about in the community to get out of the car, just to even say hello to somebody and to remember, people are going to remember how you treated them. Not saying be a pushover, not saying jeopardize your safety, all in an effort of being nice or de-escalating. I'm not saying that, absolutely not. But even when crap hits the fan, you can be respectful. And I've talked about that on YouTube videos before. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to the profession or you're getting into the profession, never forget the importance of community policing, but there has to be a fair and balanced policing approach. Keep learning, keep growing, stay safe, do great in your career, do great for others. Take care, and may God bless.